start tonight with a roll call of all members of the commission present in a work session, which will start immediately. When it is concluded, the public hearing will commence. Persons wishing to speak on any matter other than an item scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda must sign and register and list the residence address provided by the secretary on a table outside the meeting room, and such persons may be heard only at the citizens' appearance portion of a regular meeting or special meeting. Each speaker must state his or her name and the address of residence. Presentations by individuals during the citizens' appearance shall be limited to 2 minutes each. An individual speaker time may be extended for an additional 2 minutes with the approval of the majority of the commission members present. There should be a cumulative limit of 20 minutes allotted to any regular or special commission meeting. Those persons who sign up to speak at the citizens' appearance shall be called upon in the order they have signed and provided register. No personal attacks by any speaker should be made against any member of the commission, individual, or group. The table at the rear of the chambers has the list to sign up to speak. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Glenn Woodman, Vice Chair. Calling the roll.
Here, Freddie.
Commission.
Sorry.
Sue Blankenship here.
Kent Haferman here.
I'm Matt Steer. I'm the Development Services Administrator. I'm present.
And Mary Patton Boswell.
Perrin Boswell, yes. We have Cindy Bishop and Ed Maurer joining us online or virtually.
Can you hear us?
Yes, this is Ed, present virtually. Yes.
Okay.
Good deal.
All right, and so I'll just introduce everyone else who's here from staff. We have Matt Steer, Service Administrator, Cole Baker, EIT, Graduate Engineer, Bob Hager, City Attorney, Tim Oakes, Deputy Fire Chief, Jim Brierton, CIP Administrator, Cameron McGee, Planning Secretary, and have Aaron Tainter, Assistant Director of Engineering. So we'll start the work session. So the first item on the agenda tonight, your first public hearing is for Coppell Fire Station number 5. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with, it's 157 Moore Road. So it originally started out as a fire station. We've owned the property since '84. Somewhere around 1999, 2000, it turned into a Coppell theater. And it was a theater probably until the new theater opened in Old Town in 2021. So it's basically underutilized. They're looking at tearing down the existing building and building a new, almost 12,000 square foot fire station. So this would house a ladder truck, up to five firefighters, a chief, and shift commander and a captain. Sorry, I don't know.
Is that per shift or is that all in?
Per shift.
Wow, is it?
So it's no new personnel. It's just fire staff from the other stations would be reallocated to this one. So it would be property that we already own, building a new station, and using personnel that we already have.
So no increase in operational budget per se, I mean, except for maintaining the new building. And you have funds, I presume, set aside or financing or bond financing for this?
Correct. So this was approved by City Council to move forward with this project at the last council meeting, I believe.
Why can't they just convert it back to the fire station that it was instead of tearing it down?
So I think operationally, there are more things that they include in the fire stations nowadays.
Trucks
So-
are longer.
Yeah, the trucks are bigger, so they won't fit.
So where's the ladder truck living right now?
One of the other fire stations,
Which is big enough for it?
yes.
Sorry, I'm very curious.
Well, this is probably one of the smaller fire stations
Mhm.
that we had.
Mhm.
We figure it was in 1984, so it's 40 years old.
Okay.
So, there are 3 variances that we're asking for. One deals with parking in the front setback. So this is a very tight site, it's about an acre. There's 15 parking spaces, 12 behind the station, and then 3 in front of the station. So it's those 3 that we're asking for variance.
Is that visitor parking?
Yes, ma'am. And then we have the side yard setback to the south. With SF12, it requires a 25-foot setback. On the south end, at the corner, it's about just under 2 feet shy, it's about 23 feet. So we talked about moving it, we can't move the station anymore. So we're not opposed to that. In terms of landscaping, like I said, it's a 1 acre site. Typically 30% of the site is required to be landscaped. This one's 40% landscaped, but with the tight dimensions of the site, we're actually about 9 trees short. And that's because on the back end, it's very tight. And if we were to put some trees along the back line, once they start growing, they'll start scratching the trucks as they go by. And then in the front where the trucks go out, we don't want to put any trees there because it blocks their visibility leaving the fire station. So they are planting trees there, it's just we're a little bit shy on the number of trees. Really, it's going to be a brick fire station. They have proposed signage. It's pretty straightforward, actually. Do you have any questions about it?
I did have one question that goes
Yeah.
back to what Sue was saying. So, familiar with the site, so again, 20 years from now, what design modifications are we doing now to take that into account? Again, the size of the ladder truck, it may decrease or increase, 10, 15 years from now, but what are we doing, because design-wise, or, what have we looked in order to consider that?
I'm not sure, because I just look at, is this a good spot for a fire station? So I don't look at the architecture, I let the police professionals look at that.
Fair enough.
We're just looking at, is this a good spot for
Yeah.
the fire station? And so it's deemed that this is a good spot. It serves our, trying to get to people, to businesses, to residents,
Oh,
to
apropos.
visitors. So it'll help in the response time.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I was curious, like Eric, like I said, it's like, why are we doing this? But that makes sense.
Because the fire stations nowadays, they have, it's not just the kitchen, the
Yeah.
laundry room, whatever. They have a decontamination room, they have other rooms for equipment, special equipment. So that's why it's bigger. It's about probably 30-40% bigger than what's there now.
So it's across the street from a bunch of homes, huh? Any resistance from anyone?
We had 3 people within 800 feet that responded, 2 in favor, 1 opposed. They had meetings with the surrounding neighbors, so they're well aware of what's being proposed.
Okay.
Then the next item,
And your
Matt,
homeowner's
is that-
insurance goes up dramatically if the fire truck can't get the station to your house in time.
Well, I think we already meet the ISO rating for the drive times, don't we?
well, this helps us maintain our Class 1 ISO rating,
Mm-hmm.
so it puts us up there.
Okay.
We're already an ISO 1, right?
Right, it helps us maintain that.
Why does my insurance
Oh.
just keep going up and
So,
up?
no, if you're in an ISO rating, you can tell your insurance, and a lot of the insurance companies will take that into consideration and decrease your insurance.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
We need it.
only with an ISO rating of 1. Apparently, we're keeping it.
All right, next case, I've got 10 seconds. No, so it's, next case is the Rowers Coppell. It's 55 and over, senior living, active adult
Good
complex.
thing you're not in court.
There's two parts to this request. There's the zoning of the property, and then there's the future land use plan amendment. So they've spent some time, we've met with them for several months now. They came in Development Advisory Committee meeting, and they've refined their plan a few times to get to this proposal. But basically, it looks good. We're in support of it. It's a good transition from the mid-rise offices to the apartments that are to the east. It's kind of a transition of land uses. And I'll go through the whole presentation out there. The one thing that I want the applicant to justify is their parking ratio of 1.5 parking spots per unit, because I'm not familiar with active adult living and exactly how many parking spaces are needed. They've done other projects in the past, and they say that this is a good ratio. I believe the Lake Breeze product was 1.2 units, or 1.2 parking spaces per unit. So this is an increase from that. They are making good use of the electrical easement, the 100-foot electrical easement that's on North Coppell Road. They've got a private dog park and a curvilinear sidewalk along there, and they've got permission from Brazos to use that. But yeah, basically I'll just go through the presentation out there. I'm going to leave the applicant, they'll be probably able to answer the majority of your questions better than I can. So I can give you their plan, but in terms of their parking justification and their operational stuff, would probably be more appropriate for them to answer.
They have a presentation they're doing.
They do, yeah. It'll be right after mine.
Okay.
Any questions on mine, really quick? No. Okay, the next case was charity houses or transitional, what do we call them? Transitional house. Oh, yes,
Sorry, I had a question about that one.
yes,
Did I read correctly that it's gonna be all low-income housing? The
yes,
senior,
yes, it is 100% affordable housing.
do we know how many of the seniors in Coppell would qualify?
I do not.
Okay,
Yeah, and so in that section of my presentation, I was going to leave it to the applicant to explain that, because typically affordable units aren't part of really zoning per se, but in this instance, it is. So the next case was the charity houses or transitional housing. We had a request come in. They were looking to, they said, well, what are your regulations on charity houses? And so we looked in our ordinance and we didn't have any. So we contacted Mr. Hager, and he put together a definition, and we treated it the same way that we treat short-term rentals, in the fact that we're going to have a special use permit within a single-family district that will be required to go through the public hearing process at both P&Z and council. And so I can walk you through how we set it up in the ordinance, but it makes a lot of sense. And then we'll have the opportunity to review each case on a case-by-case basis.
So do a lot of other cities have this? I don't recall this being in a lot of different ordinances.
It is not.
Is it? Okay.
And what are they proposing to do with the charity house?
Well, they had just asked if we had charity houses, if we allowed for them, and what were our requirements.
One of the, I will tell you that the charity house, you'll see them near Baylor. You'll see them near Southwest Medical.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually transitional housing of sorts, where a nonprofit or a church or a religious institution owns a house or a number of houses or a multifamily unit in some cases, and people are allowed to stay there while their family members are being treated for serious, Ronald McDonald House is an example of charity house. It's a form of what I'll call this STR type of use or transitional use. I've seen a number of them also with regard to medical facilities that have basically are buying up property in order to allow doctors, and we saw this a lot in COVID, and it's a successful model where transient nurses and or doctors or other healthcare professionals, because of a lack of having people in the area, will come and basically be employed as independent contractors for a medical facility for anywhere from 90 days to 6 months. And so it's kind of this thing between an STR and a long-term rental. And what we're trying to do is fill that void, that it not be unregulated, but have some way of regulating it. So if someone wants that, I don't think we're a big candidate for this.
That was gonna be one of my questions. Why
But
would
if you don't
Coppell be
regulate it,
attractive?
if you don't regulate it and you don't have any regulations, then they can do it by right. And I
Yes.
don't know that some of the issues that some of them may have may be the same kinds of issues about who's staying there, how long they're coming and going at all hours, and that's not really traditionally conducive to a residential neighborhood. So we're trying to fill a gap when we're seeing this use come forward other places so that it gets addressed properly. And if someone wants one, great. I mean, if it's the right place and, you know, the right kind of thing that.
So if we treated it similar to the short-term rental, does that mean the building official goes in and checks it out? And
Yes,
And,
yes.
okay.
And depending on where that facility is, you, if you were to give a special use permit, may want some regulations, you know, have quiet hour, no outdoor activities, you know, it's for people that are either working or they're with their loved ones that are being treated locally at a hospital. You know, they're not there to, it's not a vacation home. So it's kind of a hybrid of a short-term rental, but it's interim housing, transitional housing. So,
Does staff make a recommendation on this?
Yes, with city initiated, so we're recommending approval. All right. Any other questions? Any questions from the virtual members?
No, I'm good.
So I think we'll give 5 minutes, someone needs to go use the facilities, and we'll meet out front.
that's a transitional time start.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 6:43, and the evening Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will now commence. The first order of business is citizens' appearances. On statements, I've noticed that nobody signed the list to speak at the citizens' appearance. Does anybody wish to speak? If not, I close the citizens' appearance and move on to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The first matter on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the February meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Any comments thereon by commissioners or a motion by commissioners?
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes for the February 29th meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Commissioner Guerra.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop.
I was absent, so I abstained.
Abstain. All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much, Cammie. And the first case that we will hear is item number 5, which is to consider approval of PD-315-SF-12, Coppell Fire Station 5, a zoning change request from SF-12, Single Family 12-2, PD 315-SF-12, Plan Development 315, Single Family 12, to allow for an 11,994 square foot fire station building and associated parking for Fire Station 5 located at 157 South Moore Road at the request of the City of Coppell, being represented by Ken Pope of PGAL, Inc. Staff report by Mayor Perrin Boswell. Mary?
Good evening, good evening, Vice Chair, Commissioners. This first public hearing this evening is for Coppell Fire Station number 5. So the property has been owned by the City of Coppell since 1984, served as a fire station until it was converted to the Coppell Theater in 1999. As the city grew, so did the need for a larger arts venue, and in 2015, the idea for a new art center was explored. The theater moved into its new home in Old Town in 2021. So the building on Moore Road has been underutilized ever since. So this is a picture of the existing building. So the discussion of having this site converted back into a fire station emerged with the assessment that was done in 2017 and updated in 2022. The Coppell Fire Department worked with the emergency services consultants to look at the current location and response times. With construction of Fire Station number 4, the fire department was at 86% compliance with the National Fire Protection Association 1710 standards. In order to maintain our ISO Class 1 rating, compliance with NFPA needs to be a minimum of 90%. This option includes keeping Fire Station number 1 in its current location and the addition of Fire Station number 5, which will provide greater distribution and coverage of fire protection to the citizens, businesses, and visitors of Coppell. This option allows for the city to utilize the existing property versus having to acquire additional property, and will utilize existing personnel and equipment. So this building will be demolished if this case is approved. So the existing building, as I said, will be demolished, and a new fire station is proposed to be constructed on this property. The new building is proposed to be 11,994 square feet. It would have an office, meeting space, kitchen area, laundry room, lockers, sleeping quarters, etc., as well as 2 apparatus bays. The station will house a shift commander, a captain, and up to 5 firefighters per shift. There are 15 parking spaces proposed on site, with 12 behind the fence and 3 for visitor parking in the front. The fire apparatus will utilize the existing driveway on Moore Road that is shared with Austin Elementary to access the apparatus bays. There we go. And then we'll have a large on-site drive approach from the apparatus base to Moore Road when going on calls. And yes, I did have fun making that work. So an 8-foot tall wood fence is proposed to screen the northern portion of the site. A 6-foot tall ornamental fence with shrubs is proposed to provide separation on the western portion of the site. There are 3 variances being requested. The first is to allow parking in the front yard. This is a very tight site, and there will only be 3 visitor parking spaces in the front by the bay doors. The second variance being requested is to allow an encroachment into the side yard along the southern portion of the property. So in SF12, the current zoning, the side yard is 10% of the lot width or 25 feet for allowable non-residential uses. The setback on this portion of the building, you can see it's slightly narrower towards the front, is about 23¼ feet, just shy of the 25 feet. So we're not asking for, it's just like a foot and a quarter. In terms of landscaping, as I mentioned before, this is a rather tight site. So there is a requirement for a 10-foot landscape buffer on the sides and rear perimeters. In this instance, the rear landscape fluctuates between 8.9 to 9.4, and the narrowest portion on the southern end is 6.68 feet, which allows us to keep the 5 employee parking spaces. There are 3 ornamental trees and 3 overstory trees being removed to construct the building, but we will be replanting 6 overstory trees and 6 overstory trees are proposed to be preserved, and 13 overstory trees and 9 ornamentals are proposed to be planted. So overall, this site is less than 2 acres and required to have 30% landscaping. They are actually providing 40% landscaping, but are 9 trees short. Part of this because they're trying to maintain a large visibility area in the front for the fire apparatus by not planting close to the driveway. So that way when the fire trucks exit, they're not having trees obstructing their view. In addition, the limited area at the rear makes it difficult to plant trees that won't end up extending into the drive aisle and scratching the fire trucks. So it's worth noting that there are trees planted on the edge of the common property line already with the school that provides screening as well. So the third variance being requested is to allow for the landscape plan as presented. So now we're looking at the elevations. The building, as I said, will be about just shy of 12,000 square feet. It's proposed to be a combination of mostly brown brick with some smooth stone colored looters in a buff masonry. The eastern facade facing Moore, which is on the top left, is proposed to have 2 large 4-fold doors at the apparatus bays, a front door that will lead to the public lobby area, and transom windows above the 2 large bay doors. The north and west elevations are proposed to also have windows evenly spaced to allow for light. All elevations are proposed to have transom windows for additional light. We do have signage proposed for the front building facade, a sign above each bay door, one that says truck, the other battalion, and then above those bay doors a sign with 12-inch pin-mounted letters saying Coppell Fire Department, which is depicted on the screen there. Then they're going to have somewhere between a 7 to 8 foot pin-mounted aluminum number 5 representing Fire Station 5 with lighting behind is proposed on the front facade as well. And then they will have another 15 square foot surface mounted aluminum fire department logo, which is being worked on and is not finalized. So the signage for this building does fall within the required guidelines. And so this is just a couple renderings of the building, of the proposed building. One in a daytime setting, one in a evening setting. So because this is a public hearing and a zone change request, we did send out notices within 200 feet as required by state law. Additionally, we did send out an additional notices within the 800 feet as a courtesy. We received no responses within the 200 feet. We did receive 3 responses within the 800 feet. 2 were in favor and 1 was opposed. In terms of the ones in favor, they were happy that a fire station was moving back into the area. And then we had another one. We've lived in Coppell for 39 years, 3 different houses in and around Austin Elementary. Currently on Raven Lane, it was a fire station before and posed no problems for us or the school. We are in favor of the fire station being reinstated at that location. And then we did receive another phone call this afternoon from someone else on Raven Lane who was opposed due to the changes on Moore Road, that the roads are narrow with the bike lanes and it's a busier road, and that the maps send people from Cypress Water through Moore Road, and there's lots of kids that walk and ride their bikes to school. So staff is recommending approval of the request subject to the following conditions: that there may be additional comments during detailed engineering review. 2, that a plat will be required. 3, A, to allow parking in the front yard. B, to approve the landscape plan as presented. And C, to allow a 2-foot encroachment into the building into the side yard setback. That is the end of my presentation. We do have the consultant and other staff available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Boswell. Do any commissioners have any questions of city staff?
I do. I got a couple of questions. One, I think there's a tornado siren already on that site. Is that tornado siren going to stay?
Yes.
I didn't see it in the renderings.
I got a thumbs up from the fire chief, yes.
Okay. And then the second one is I know you said it was a tight site, but looking at the site plan layout, it looks like there is room to shift it 1.5 feet to the north. I mean, I didn't see a reason why it couldn't be that we're asking for the variance. If this was any other applicant, we would ask them to take a strong look at that.
I'll let our architect take that one.
I assume that you are the proponent.
Yeah, my name is Ken Pope. I'm an architect at PGAO. We're 14135 Midway Road in Addison. And the design problem with Fire Station 5 here is we're moving very large fire apparatus. The present truck 123 is what we designed around. And there's a new tractor-drawn aerial the city is purchasing to occupy this station. And these trucks have very large turning radiuses. So getting the truck down and turned into the bay was a very difficult geometry problem. Also balancing with the location. I'm sorry. How's that? Is that better? Okay. So getting large fire apparatus to turn around this tiny little site is very tricky because these trucks have big, very large turning radiuses. So to get something down and turned to the bay, it almost dictated a very precise location for where that apparatus bay locates. In addition, the east-west location of the building on the site, we tried to balance enough space in the back to turn the truck in and maintain the truck, and enough space in the front to give enough apron to pull out, wait, and for traffic to go by before they exit the station if they need to. So it's a very, very tight site.
Did you guys run auto turns on this?
Yes, ma'am, in several permutations.
Okay, because it just seems like a foot and a half, there would be enough room and enough straightaway, especially based on Mary's very amazing animation of the fire trucks. It seems to work just fine.
They are impressive graphics.
May I build on your question, Sue?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sir, I don't think I've ever seen visitor parking in the main driveway of a fire station.
Probably not.
Is
We
there-
avoid it if possible.
So there's, see all that green space to the north? Why can't we put parking there?
There are two reasons. One is that's mostly full of trees, so we wanted to keep those as much as possible. And the second is it would, of course, require a second curb cut. And that curb cut would have to be between the apparatus areas and the turn-in to the school.
Well, are those major objections to the fire chief? Or, I mean, isn't it more functional and practical and safe to have the visitor parking to the north?
Yeah, not driving into an oncoming fire truck?
Again, it's not ideal, but a 1 acre site for a fire station is very, very tight. And visitor parking is a limited land use. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. You don't get a lot of visitors, especially a number of parking at fire stations. Again, it was not desirable, but based on the trade-offs required on this very tight site, especially knowing both the curb cut requirements and the city's desire to keep as much landscape and vegetation as possible. This was the compromise that we felt would be able to get the fire service on this site while disrupting the community to the least.
Would staff care to comment on that response and my question regarding the location of the parking?
Right, so I don't think fire stations typically have visitors per se. And with this location, we are trying to keep as much of the landscaping as we can, if possible. There are 12 parking spaces at the rear, that will be utilized. In addition, if you kind of go out further, there is some additional parking, on the school property. I just, in terms of visitor, it's not something that visitors will be coming to. So we were okay with the parking where they're proposing. We'd rather have them keep the trees.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Does the applicant have anything further he wishes to state?
No, sir. I think the attempt is to provide a facility that enhances the neighborhood, increases fire service in the city of Coppell, and fits into and enhances the neighborhood as much as possible.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. We've had one person sign up, Martha Allison Brewer. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, I do.
Okay, come on up and announce yourself on the record.
Mr. Vice Chairman and Commissioners and fellow neighbors and Coppellians, I'm Martha Allison Bluer. I live at 617 Raven Lane here in Coppell, across the street from this site. First of all, before I forget it, we visit fire stations. I've taken my grandson when I felt he was injured in my backyard. I swept him up and took him to the nearest fire station to have them look him over, and it was the best thing I ever did because he listened to them, and it was a very positive experience for me. Also, we've taken the grandchildren, the family, and my son-in-law bakes roast meat for them throughout the year. The Girl Scout troops take cookies. We definitely visit fire stations as a community. So they do have visitors. They deserve visitors. You know, some days I hope get boring. But I am here, it's terrible to be against a fire station. I love fire stations. I tried to make a bid on one. I'm going to turn it into a residence to raise my children. It had the brass pole and everything. It didn't work out. But I realized I moved in, I bought my house and moved in 2008, 16 years ago. And I loved meandering across the street to go to that little teeny weeny theater. Pete Wilson and I became great friends, and Coppell was so blessed to have him as a fabulous director all those years. The thing is, you might have noticed, there is now a new city south of Beltline. And guess where our telephones, Google Maps and Apple Maps direct us to cross on Moore Road if we are going south towards Cypress Waters. I have several doctor's appointments so conveniently located there, and that's how I found this out, calling from my, opening my map from my daughter's house. Also, there's lots more traffic generally because there are lots more people. 3 more houses have been built along Moore Road. It's all residential, completely residential, except for 1 child care center and 1 elementary school. We now have bike lanes on both sides of Moore Road. So it's 2 narrow lanes plus the 2 bike trails. And that beautiful big red truck will have to go through the bike trails as well as, it's tight. That means teeny, tiny. And safety is my paramount concern. Otherwise, if I felt it were adequate and it were safe, I would love having this fire station at this location. There were very few phones before 2008, or when that fire station used to be there, and definitely fewer cars. So fewer cars were being directed to turn connecting. You realize they're, Denton Tap, MacArthur, Mockingbird, again, all residential, and 2 schools, and then Moore Road, all residential with 1 school and 1 child care. These are not good roads to add something like a fire station with very difficult to drive vehicles. I now see families using the bike trails. They go as a whole family. Are the children bike in them to go to school? This is new. And I've noticed that the parents use their strollers in the bike trails so that they don't have to go up and down curbs. Every street that opens onto Moore, most of them have alleys. And that's my terror as an individual. I am terrified. I'm going to hit a child, or a pedestrian, but mainly a child, with all the activity between 7 and 8 in the morning and all the activity. Oh, the parents' cars block Moore in the morning and in the afternoon when school lets out. And then the kids just swarm. As you know, you have schools in your neighborhoods too. You know what it's like. Joggers use the bike trails. I didn't think of that, but it's really working. We have a pedestrian, busy residential neighborhood. They built 3 new large houses, as I told you. Oh, the intersection. at Sandy Lake and Moore is a Terra. It's a very small intersection, tight, but busy. And 3 of the 4 corners have parking lots with curbs cut into Moore and into Sandy Lake. So you have traffic trying to meld into all 4 directions there from 3 of those 4 corners.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'm fine. Oh, one thing I would like to point out, I saw your circle. Here, that you've contacted, how many feet of that circle? That's not near enough. I mean, Austin Elementary has, children are coming from a much larger area. That's nothing for something as circumstantial as a big red, 2 big red fire trucks in a small, tight area. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else in the audience desire to speak on this case?
Hi there. I'm Colleen Fink. I live in that 200-foot square circle at 603 Quail Lane on the corner of Quail and Moore. I was out of town for the last month. My father was dying, and I just got back. And so my initial reaction to this letter was to oppose it. Similarly, for some of the reasons she said, basically the residential area, it's all residential except for the school, in my mind. I didn't know what it would do to our property value having it right across the street, and I wasn't sure about the disruption of the school. I didn't fax this in because I didn't have a fax machine. And I wasn't sure. I called a friend of mine that's a firefighter, and he said, well, the city's growing, we need it. So I thought I was at least going to come and try and listen to what was being said here today. And it kind of confirmed my thoughts, like, why would they pick that location? Is it just because it's a free piece of property, a piece of property we're not using anymore? And what I heard was that it's not ideal for a fire station, that it's super tight, that they already know that there's all these issues that they're making compromises on to place it there. So my question would really be that, like, are we just trying to fit in a fire station somewhere because we have free land? Like, why are we selecting this location? So I would look into that. Like, is there somewhere else? I mean, I'm not real familiar, but I feel like even if it was still our neighborhood, North Lake Woodlands, they just got rid of tennis courts. At least that's like on the corner of a main road that could get them to somewhere quicker, that's commercial across the street and just residential partially. I don't know. But, you know, is this the ideal location? Like, what's the purpose of putting it there? Are we just looking for a spot? Maybe we look for a better spot. Those are my thoughts. And of course, I do have grandchildren and children, and I see what she said. People drive over. I'll tell you what, my backyard, my driveway is right there on the corner of the alley of Moore and Quail, and then there's the alley. People drive through my yard all the time. I'd love to come to you guys and say, what can I get to do to stop people from driving through my yard? If I'm coming up the alley, they're pulling up in my side yard to make room for me to pull in my own driveway because they don't know I'm going into my driveway. Like, it is a mess, the traffic right there. So what if there is a fire? What if the fire trucks are stuck because there's, you know, crossing guards and children and families? It just doesn't seem ideal for me for many reasons. But that's for y'all to decide.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Does any other citizen desire to speak on this application? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Mani Janalkada. I've been in the Coppell community for the past 18 years. To be very honest, I wasn't aware of the fire station being put up here, but hearing those two ladies talk about it, I am very concerned because I'm one of those people who takes that shortcut to go to Cypress Waters. So I drive on that road and it's already very tight. So my question as a citizen in Coppell is, why is it to save money that we are choosing that site? Or what is the reason that we are picking that site? You know, can we not use that site to support some of the school activities or children's activities and find a better place for the fire station? That's my question. And I also support those two opposing views. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can we get your address, please?
716 Westminster Way in, so Coppell 75019, 716. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to address any of the citizen statements?
Tim Oates, Coppell Fire Department, 265 East Parkway. Which one would you like me to address?
And I'm just Jamie Briarton, Engineering Department, same address. I was just talking to Tim about addressing, I think Mary talked about it in the back, about the studies that were performed to
Okay.
address those concerns about the location that
So
was
the-
chosen.
Okay, so the location was chosen mainly because it's right in the middle between Fire Station 3, which is right here next door, and Fire Station number 2, which is on MacArthur Road. And that's an underserviced area for us, anywhere between that intersection at Sandy Lake and Moore, all the way down to Beltline, and then all the little ancillary streets off of it. If you look at our heat maps that we have, that the consultant ran in 2017, and then again in 2022, the majority of the calls that we weren't meeting the response time in a timely manner was that entire area, right down that corridor. So to give the citizens better service, that location was chosen on purpose, not just because we owned it already. It was the site that was appropriate for the calls that we've been running there for the last, I think we did 12 to 18 years of history on the calls. And then the response times from Station 3 or from Station 2 to that area, and it was just underutilized or under-serviced, yeah.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you for that, sir. So the studies, of course, are important. Were other sites considered as well? Are there other sites available that you could have used, or were they studied?
Well, in 2017, when the study was first, it was to locate Fire Station 4, which is over on the west end of town at the North Point, Royal, Sandy Lake area. And it was to relocate Fire Station 1 at that time to around Sanders Loop and Beltline. And then now that we had 2 or 3 years worth of call data with Station 4 in its place, when we redid the study in 2022, it showed that the heat map of underutilization or underserviced areas was actually more over in this part of the city near the Moore and Sandy Lake intersection area, and then down all the way to Beltline Road. So,
Well, that makes a lot of sense, but are there other sites that could be utilized for this to address that heat map issue or the heat map study?
well, without taking people's homes, I guess, there's no vacant land just sitting down that road. There's a little spot down by the daycare just up the street, but it's not for sale. It wasn't. We contacted, and then it's no different than where this facility is or we plan to locate. It's only a quarter mile down the road, but it wasn't even offered. We called the owner in Austin or San Antonio. I can't remember where the guy lives, but he said he wasn't interested in selling. So.
Sorry, I do have one question for you, Assistant Chief, but I guess for the general public, what are the benefits of having that fire station there? I know you mentioned a few of them, but can you go into that ISO rating and how it benefits the citizens of Coppell, and then also just having the station in that area?
Yeah, so the city of Coppell is, I'm not sure when we first got it. I think it was around 2006. I think we got our ISO rating of 1, which is a ISO Insurance Services Office Class 1, which is the Property Protection Class, PPC Class 1, which is the best you can get. And so what it does is it allows insurance companies to give the best rates possible for fire protection, for fire insurance on your home. And a lot of that does have to do with our response time. So the longer that it takes us to answer calls, then that weighs into the ISO classification. So having this fire station located here obviously is going to lower our response times and help us maintain our ISO Class 1.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things you and the commission have asked some questions. City Council made a decision to have us bring this to you. So the real question is this site, is the zoning appropriate for this site? You don't get to make a choice of where the fire station goes. That belongs to City Council. So I would advise you to address the issue regarding the zoning, either appropriate or inappropriate. But where that fire station goes is the province of the fire chief and the City Council. So, and they're accountable to our citizens. So I would admonish you that you don't have jurisdiction on that issue. You do have jurisdiction whether the zoning is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any discussion as to the proposal? Questions of applicant or city staff?
I do have a concern about the 2-foot encroachment, like Sue had mentioned. You know, if another applicant would have approached us, we would ask them to reconsider and, you know, look at the layout of the property except for the building. I think maybe a little more diligence or due diligence on that, because it appears that there is ample room to not have that 2-foot encroachment.
Well, I'm going to say that it's not an ideal place to put a fire station, but it may be the only choice we've got, because it is the only open land on Moore, and they've done what is possible to address staffing and the layout of the facility. So I'm going to move that we consider approval of PD-315-SF-12 as submitted, subject to the staff conditions, and request a second and third.
Second.
Ed Mauer seconded.
Cammy, call the roll, please.
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship?
Can you come back to me?
Yes. Commissioner Guerra?
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman?
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer?
Aye.
Commissioner Haveman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop?
Aye.
And Commissioner Blankenship?
I think I would like to see the site plan with a little bit more thought given to it about the front yard parking and the encroachment, but the overall zoning of a fire station, aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the comments from the citizen on this case, but it is better for a homeowner in that area to have a fire station there than not. And that is the critical factor. Thank you very much. The next case that we have to consider is PD-316-MF-2, Roars Coppell, Lot 2, Block 1, GTE Shared Service Center Edition. A zoning change request from HC to PD-316, MF-2, Plan Development 316, Multifamily 2, and Land Use Map Amendment from Freeway Special District to Residential Urban Neighborhood to allow a 232-unit, 4-story, age-restricted, 55-plus senior living facility on approximately 9.9 acres located on the west side of North Coppell Road and north of Canyon Drive at the request of Roars Companies, being represented by Blaze Bounards, Kimberly Horn, and staff rep is Matt Steer. This is a public hearing. Mr. Steer, your comments on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Commissioners, this property is located on the northwest corner of North Coppell Road and Canyon Drive. The property's never been developed. This is a two-part request. The first is the zoning of the property to plan development to allow the use and development as presented this evening. And the second will be a change from freeway special district to urban residential neighborhood on the 2030 comprehensive master plan. The site is 9.9 acres in size. Rowers is proposing a 232-unit, 4-story development consisting of 4 studios, 616 square feet in size, 82 one-bedroom units, which are on average 807 square feet, and 146 two-bedroom units, the average size being 1,082 square feet. The density is 23.45 units per acre, and it's 29.3 units per acre if the easement area on the right-hand side, the 100-foot electrical easement, is deducted. A PD condition is to allow a greater density than the 22 units per acre maximum density of the MF2 district. This is proposed to be age restricted to active adults ages 55 and greater. The project is 100% affordable. Those that qualify will need to have 60% area median income as defined by HUD, and I'll let the applicant speak to this in more detail. The proposed structure is set back 223 feet from North Coppell Road, 102 feet from Canyon, and 67 feet from the west property line. And they are proposing 1.5 parking spaces per unit, which amounts to 348 parking spaces. Typical MF2 requires 2.5 spaces per unit, or 580 parking spaces. There is a drainage channel that's 45,000 square feet that will remain in place, and there's a 100-foot Brazos electrical easement that's approximately 86,400 square feet that actually overlaps the drainage channel. In terms of amenities, Rowers is proposing to have the following interior amenities: a theater at 840 square feet, a fitness center approximately 1,000 square feet, a community room at 1,030 square feet, a business center at 1,030 square feet, an activity room and library at 850 square feet, multifunction learning center at 1,040 square feet, as well as have on-site management and supportive services. Staff asked that they provide a community room on each floor, but the applicant requested to keep the large amount of amenity space on level 1. Exterior amenities are proposed to include a dog park located within the electrical easement, a putting green in their courtyard area, and a pool with a grilling area also in their courtyard area. There are 67.8 inches of trees proposed to be removed, and given the tree preservation and landscape credits, no tree mitigation fees will be required. The landscape plans provided show that the site meets the minimum area requirements of 23%. Approximately 39% of the site is proposed to be landscaped. The drainage channel was not included in that 39% calculation. The remaining area of the Brazos electrical easement, not including the drainage channel, accounts for 13% of the 39%, leaving 26% outside of the easement. All in all, the plan meets the landscape area requirements even without including the easement area. Permission has been granted from the easement holder, that's Brazos, to allow the construction of a curvilinear sidewalk and fenced-in area for the private dog park. And they're continuing discussions to see if accent trees will be allowed within this area. Rowers is proposing to plant 109 overstory trees, which consist of 29 live oaks, 30 cedar elms, 50 Shumard red oaks, and 24 accent trees that are 15 crepe myrtles, 6 Mexican plum, and 3 Yopon hollies. The proposed trees, in combination with the 12 existing trees, meet the minimum tree requirements. The building elevations and material board show a variety of materials and colors proposed for the building. There are 2 brick colors proposed. There's buff, red-brown, and there's gray banding used for lintels and other accents throughout. The decks, railings, and coping will be black. Additionally, there are charcoal and Arctic fiber cement panels and warm gray and buff fiber cement lap siding. There will be a flat roof with black coping used on the parapets. You can see from the top rendering, that is the south elevation looking from Canyon. The middle rendering, or the east elevation, is the view from North Coppell Road, and the bottom rendering is the western side of the building that you see from the 5-story office. The cover parking will have gray standing seam metal roof, and the pillars will have a concrete base. The dumpster enclosure will have buff brick and will be large enough to house the generator proposed for the building. There's a 60 square foot monument sign proposed, and it was shown on Canyon Drive, approximately 27 feet off the right-of-way at the main entry, and further details will be required at the time of permitting. The second part of the request is a land use amendment. The 2030 master plan currently calls for this area to be Freeway Special District. This area is located right up here, as shown in red. The purpose of this designation, according to the plan, was to provide areas within the community for conventional high-intensity regional commercial uses and office development dependent upon good transportation access to highway interchanges and frontage roads. These areas are primarily intended for medium to large-scale developments serving travelers and clientele from the region, and typically high volumes of ingress and egress by vehicular traffic. Uses appropriate for the Freeway Special District include hotels, multi-story office buildings, medium to large-scale regional commercial uses, restaurant, and other uses dependent upon high volumes of vehicular traffic. Rower's request is to amend the future land use plan for this site to change to Brown, which is urban residential neighborhood, which allows for higher density residential uses that serve the needs of residents seeking alternatives to low and medium density single family detached housing. And although the urban residential neighborhood land use in the master plan calls for a mix of housing, with the majority being owner occupied and not all rentals, this was the best match for the proposed use. You can see here there's the higher density dwelling units to the north, the patio homes, and then this is multifamily to the east as well. This would be a good transition from the highway commercial or the freeway special district into a more dense residential population, which would transition to the single family. We sent out 14 notices within 200 feet and 63 notices within 800 feet as a courtesy, and we had no written responses or calls either in favor or opposition. Staff is recommending approval of the request, subject to the following conditions. One, that there may be additional comments during the building permit and detailed engineering review. Two, a replat's required to be approved prior to engineering review and recorded prior to building permit. 3, park fees of $12.85 per unit shall be collected prior to plat recordation. 4, site lighting shall meet the City of Coppell requirements. 5, to restrict the age of the residents within the development to persons aged 55 and older in accordance with the Fair Housing Act. 6, to allow for 1.5 parking spaces per unit. 7, to allow for 4 stories, which is 50-foot maximum height, and a density of 23.4 units per acre. 8, to allow for the balconies to have decorative metal railings and not be completely screened from view. And 9, to amend the future land use plan from freeway special district to urban residential neighborhood. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steer. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Steer?
Matt, I do have a quick question. This sounds like it's 2 hearings, not 1.
There's 2 components to the hearing, which is the future land use plan and the zoning change request.
So what if we approve one and not the other?
You can do that.
Okay. In the past, we've taken these as 2 different cases.
I've always taken them concurrently.
Okay. Just curious.
Further questions by commissioners?
This is Ed. The question I had for Matt, and I think the presentation will address this, was as it relates to the 1.5 parking spaces per unit and reasonableness of that.
Yes, sir. I forgot to mention the applicant is in the audience, and they do have a presentation. So they will address the 1.5 parking count per unit.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so Matt, to Sue's point here,
Okay, so I just conferred with our city attorney on your question. So technically, you don't have jurisdiction over the land use, so that would go to council. You would be able to make, if you approve the zoning, then that would mean that you would approve the land use change as well.
so Matt, by land use, to be clear, you're talking about the design of the building, the density of the land, and all that goes with the land use?
What I'm talking about is the comprehensive master plan. This called for freeway special district.
They would need I thought you were talking about something.
Okay.
If it's about the comp plan, yes, they need to make the motion to approve the amendment to the comp plan and the zone. So since your future land use plan, I didn't understand what he was asking me. My apologies. If it's a comp plan change, you need to vote on it because you do have jurisdiction to make a recommendation.
But is this 2 cases or is this 1 case?
It's 1 case. We roll it together. It was noticed as an amendment to the land use and an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
So they're concurrent.
They're concurrent. They're done at the same time. They're part of the same notice. It's okay.
Okay, you're the lawyer.
So may I proceed with my question?
I'm a city lawyer. I'm not a land development lawyer or a land developer lawyer. Misty may have a different opinion, but Misty ain't the city attorney. Okay.
So Matt, regarding, I think it was Ed that was asking about the parking, but that also relates to the density of the site. And obviously, they're utilizing every piece of land that they can, which I would do the same. But with the 23 and a half units per acre versus the 22 under the ordinance, and the restriction on parking and such, is that something that you feel appropriate?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. This is a transition from the highway commercial, the mid-rise office developments, and this is a transition from that to you've got your multifamily, which is across the street. So a little bit higher density is appropriate in this instance, provided that they can justify the parking.
Thank you, Matt.
I do have one more question, and it's regarding number 5, to restrict the age of the residents within the development to persons aged 55 or older in accordance with the Fair Housing Act. Doesn't the Fair Housing Act allow, if it's a married couple, one of the residents to be over 55 and the spouse isn't required to be?
Yes, it does, and so we might need to reword that to read whatever the Fair Housing Act. They did have an exhibit that they had given to us, and we can let them address it because they're a lot smarter on the topic than I am.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners, and thank you for your consideration tonight. My name is Logan Schmidt, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant Roars Companies. Our address is 2 Carlson Parkway, Plymouth, Minnesota. So, can I control? Okay, you go.
Just point to me.
Okay. Sounds good. So Roars Company is based on Minneapolis area in Minnesota. We were founded in 2012 by Brian and Kent Roars, who still are involved with the company today, and really have turned into from a Midwest-focused company to developing around the country, and have multiple projects that are going in Texas and several around the DFW area. So to date, we've completed 76 projects that are either under construction or built. That total development has been around $2.5 billion, and we've delivered or have under construction around 13,000 units. In Texas, we have nine projects that are either built, under construction, and a very similar project down the road in Wiley. That is an affordable 55-plus community that will be opening later this year. So we cover the location. It's on the corner of North Coppell Road and Canyon Drive. The site plan, I think we covered here as well. So just kind of covering.
Let me point out, on your site plan, it's oriented with north to the right.
That's right. So west is going up, north's going to the right here, so it's flipped a little bit. But anyways, to cover the parking, so this is a ratio we feel very comfortable with. On the Wiley community, we were actually parked at a 1.3, and we feel very confident about that. And with a lot of our other developments around the state, in Hutto, in Austin, and Bernie, for family deals, those are still parked at a 1.5 that have, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. So not just the studios, 1s and 2s. So this is, it's a number we feel very confident about. And we have additional support as well. But if we can go to the next one. So just kind of covering the location here. So to get to the senior center and a lot of the core retail, it's about a 2.5 mile, 6-minute drive. What we are planning to do is partner with SPAN to provide weekly transit to those retail centers that would provide transportation, 3 times a week is what we plan up front. If we find out that there's more demand and, more individuals are wanting that additional support at that time, we will certainly provide that. But this is a number that we've kind of feel that will be, will deliver the need to get the folks from, to the more retail areas from our project. So kind of covering the affordable housing side of this. So originally, affordable housing was done under Section 8 of the tax code, and this was, done mostly in the 70s and 80s, where residents only paid 30% of their income. They received a voucher from the U.S. government, from HUD, that paid the difference, and It didn't matter if they had a job or not. Really, today's affordable housing and there's not new projects that are being done under that program anymore. Really, the program that governs this project will be Section 42 of the tax code. And this doesn't subsidize the tenant. It subsidizes the developer through low-income housing tax credit. And there's two types of low-income housing tax credit. There's a 4% credit, which is non-competitive, and a 9% credit. So this is planning to be done under the 4% program. And what we are able to do is apply for bonds that come from the U.S. government and serviced by the state. And then we also apply for these tax credits. And that application is made to TDHCA, the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, who facilitate these credits. And it's a federal tax credit that the investors who buy these credits are able to take on their federal tax return. So it's not a local subsidy, it's a federal subsidy. So the equity that this generates provides the bulk of the equity for the project that's needed to build it. Large banks and institutions invest in these 4% credits. A lot of times it's folks that need Community Reinvestment Act, and to hit those, the bank credits and whatnot. On the tax exempt bond side, so we're able to get, this is more of a conventional bank loan that we'll get from a bank, or on the permanent debt side we'll get either a Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae agency loan that'll be the permanent debt on the project. And also on this one we're planning to partner with a nonprofit partner that would be eligible for a local property tax exemption. So that's another component of the financing for this project. So who can qualify for a 60% unit in Dallas County? These are the income limits that set for the whole household. So for a studio apartment, the rent for that estimated rent is just under $1,100, and the income limit is $43,000. Sliding up to the 2-bedroom, estimated rent for that is about $1,400, and the combined income for a married couple would be $55,000. And with the senior, with the 55 plus, for folks, what we found in projects similar to this is the average age is probably, it's recent retirees or late career workers. A lot of times I think the average age is middle 60s, and this is a lot of times it's folks living on fixed income, who are receiving income from their investments. And this doesn't take into account any of their assets or any tests like that. It's just truly their income that they're receiving, and reporting a tax return on. So just an example of some jobs in Coppell that would qualify. So just an example, electrician, we just got some averages, 51,000, a teacher, 57,000. And then those living on fixed income or living off their retirement savings are those who could qualify for this. And some of the benefits we see, it gives seniors a nice place to live. This is a highly amenitized building, even though it is affordable. It maintains and enhances housing quality and diversity, and really promotes generational housing. It allows people to stay in the community that maybe don't want to live in their house anymore, maybe want to downsize, but still want to live in Coppell in the community here. Maybe they have family, and really, free up those homes for the next series of families coming in town. And then give them a place to stay that's a little bit less maintenance, a little less work for them, and really enhances that small town sense of community by keeping the citizens here. So just kind of a rough project timeline is, right now we're on the very front of it, with the rezoning. Down the road, if this gets approved, we'll be coming back for a resolution of no objection. That'll come at a later date. And then, just a rough timeline to get started with construction. We'll apply to the state for the bonds and the low-income housing tax credits, and then roughly looking at a early next year start, and then fall 2026 completion. And here's just a couple examples of some other projects we've done. This Meridian at Wiley project is the deal that's under construction in Wiley, and that'll be opening up later this year. And then we have a project in Hutto on the Narrows that just opened actually. And then the Rider Ridge communities in Austin, Texas. Just an example of the similar projects. And as Matt mentioned, a lot of the amenities here, fitness center, theater, grills, community room, business center, dog park, putting green. We will be the on-site management. So Roche Companies does have an in-house management company that will be managing this property. Kind of what the requirement of this program is that there's a minimum 15-year compliance period. So we will be owning this project for the long term. We won't be flipping this and selling this like maybe somebody else would, because just programmatically we can't. So we plan to be, a long-term community partner in the community. And then we also will be providing supportive services for the tenants. And this is a group that we've worked with on all of our projects with this program is Portfolio Resident Services. They provide services to the residents, and that's what the multifamily room and the amenity space was. And they really they'll take a survey of the community and see what needs they have. They partner with a lot of local partners to provide, fitness programming, health and nutrition services. They'll lead like potlucks, organize really community events. So we found them to really help in the community as well. And then some of the unit finishes here. So this is going to be high-end finishes, solid surface countertops, quartz or granite, stainless steel appliances, resilient flooring and carpet. There will be an unit washer and dryer, and most units will have a patio or a balcony. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do you expect your parking ratio at 1.5 to work?
We do. Yeah, we feel very confident in that. Like I said, most of our communities are at around that 1.5 ratio, including the family apartments that, have a lot more 2 and 3 bedrooms. So we feel, especially with the senior use, it's likely to have less cars than a family of 2 might have. So, we feel really strongly about that ratio. In the event we find out that it's not enough or need to find an alternative solution, we would likely reach out to the office building and see if there's any way we could work out get a parking easement across the road, just because there's so much vacant parking there in the worst case scenario. But we feel really confident about the amount of parking we're providing on site.
And your other locations use the 1.5 ratio and don't have a problem?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Of the 76 projects that you've done, how many of those were 55 and over?
So our first one in Texas is in Wiley. We've done a lot of these around the Twin City area. I believe we've done 5 or 6 to date that are all open. And many of those are at parking ratios less than this one. Those vary anywhere from, 130 to, I think, up to like maybe 170. But, they average out to that 150 ratio. And, the ones that are mostly full and are at that range, we haven't run into any issues.
I had 2 questions, and I'm probably going to take Cindy's question, but, what's the anticipated number of people that you think from Coppell that would live in that property? And then the other question I have is about the local tax exemption, sorry. Mm-hmm. How does that work, and is that necessary for this development?
Yeah, so answering the first question, I guess just using the Wiley project for reference, we're just starting to get leasing on that, and a lot of the initial interest has come from folks in the community in Wiley. It's hard to say an exact number, because it depends on who can qualify and meet these income restrictions, because that is a hard restriction. You can't make $1 more than that, and just for compliance purposes. So it's hard to say exactly how many, but based on some of the average salaries we've seen, it could be anywhere from, it could be most or half or some. It's just hard to say without knowing the specifics of everyone's, incomes.
So to build on that though, for 200 and, what is it, 23 units, is that right?
232.
232. So that's pretty decent size project, right?
That's right.
So you'll be likely bringing in people from outside the community to fill that baby up, yeah? Do you agree?
Yeah, anyone can live there who meet the requirements. So, certainly, I think the marketing campaign would start in the immediate area, and really we'd try to get as much as we can. And as time goes on, it'll probably get wider and wider in the DFW area. But really, we would like to focus on the immediate area first, and just try to hit everyone that we can and who can move in there, and then it'll widen as it goes.
And I guess the second question I had asked about the local property tax exemption, is that necessary for this development?
It is, and that's mostly due just for the financial feasibility of the project. Just with the restricted rents that are, significantly lower than you could get with a market rate project, and all the other factors of the financing, it is a necessary requirement for the feasibility of this project.
So the property tax exemption, because you're affiliated with a nonprofit, am I saying that correctly?
We would partner with a nonprofit.
You partner in the project with a nonprofit?
That's right.
Do you have a nonprofit already identified?
Yeah, the group that we're likely going to partner with, they're a group called Texas Housing Foundation. They have a lot of experience in developing projects. They're based in the Austin area, but they partner in a lot of projects, in the Austin area and the DFW area, and they have a good track record with the group that we partnered with.
Is that a complete exemption of all property tax, or is that a partial exemption?
It would be a full ad valorem tax exemption.
And that runs in perpetuity to the property as through the ownership?
It runs with the ownership. The nonprofit will own the land as well as be a partner in the ownership. And for whatever reason, if they left or the ownership changed of the land, then it would go back on the tax roll. But those requirements and it has to meet these income requirements as well. So if any one of those things change, it would lose the exemption. But as long as that structure is in place, the exemption will be in place.
Is the exemption state mandated or city mandated, or
it's through the state?
Through the state.
Yeah.
So, just for my clarification, you want to build a product in our city that you don't know that will serve our city. I'm a strong supporter of the over 55 community, so I think that's a need that we really need here in Coppell. But what you're proposing is something that I don't think services the residents of Coppell. It brings people in from the outside, and then you want a tax exemption to bring those people in. Is that right? Share with me where I'm wrong here.
I would say that it's going to serve anyone who's eligible in Coppell can rent there, that can meet the income requirements.
Have you done studies to figure out if Coppell residents would qualify besides just the two incomes that you showed earlier?
Yeah, so we've done some market studies. We've done analyses in a market area that is mostly Coppell, and the capture rate is very low for the amount of eligible tenants that could live there and could qualify to live there. So there is definitely support from the immediate area for individuals that live there, and we're happy to share those reports.
I didn't see them on the documentation of the city website.
We have that report. That's something we can follow up and give to staff. But we do have that information. We just hadn't had it. It wasn't part of the presentation.
Okay, I would just like to see a little bit more information
Okay.
on how you are servicing Coppell residents, because it's our job to look out for Coppell, as Martha stated earlier at the stand, Coppellians, which is a new word for me. But I'd really be interested in that before I strongly consider this. So.
Okay.
I had one last question, sorry. And I guess, obviously, you're hearing our concerns here.
Yeah.
So Could a certain percentage of those units be, I guess, considered I guess, affordable housing? I don't know how to describe that, but again, like I said, I guess my concern too, again, it's not meeting the needs of our citizens here.
It's just it's part of the federal program, just with needing under this 4% program, you have to meet certain income set-asides in order to be eligible for this tax credit. And on this one, it's, 100% at 60%. That's just the requirement on this one.
So the city wouldn't get any tax revenue from this project, is that correct?
That would be correct with this financing structure.
And I concur with those other commissioners about, I feel like this isn't supporting enough of Coppell by the low income requirements.
How many low-income residents do we have in Coppell? Do you have that data?
Yeah, I don't have the capture rate. I don't have the market study data handy. That is something I can follow up with because we do have that information.
Would it be appropriate to ask the applicant to come back with this data before we make a decision on this?
It's no concern of ours. It's either a 55 or older, makes sense from a land standpoint. The issues that you're bringing up are issues that have nothing to do with the use. And
I would disagree with that because it's 55 and older and low income. So there's two conditions that have to be met.
I understand, but us asking what the tax rate is, what the abatement requirements are, who owns it, whether it's a religious foundation or whether it's a nonprofit corporation, have nothing to do with the land use. It has everything to do with their financing, which is not a land use question. It may be interesting to you all, but it has nothing to do with the zoning.
And I would add that...
And the Fair Housing Act applies to this kind of use. And so we have to be very careful that we don't say something inappropriate and someone misinterpret what we're saying.
Fair enough. So you're saying that the 55 and older...
That's relevant because that's okay, because the Fair Housing Act allows a housing facility to have 55 or older as a requirement. So that's the product, that's the zoning, so that's appropriate. But how it's financed and whether the city supports or doesn't support a tax abatement or whether or not they pay ad valorem taxes, well, very interesting, is not a topic for discussion about what the appropriate land use is for this tract of land. So
Well,
it's either
I got
appropriate for senior housing or it's not appropriate.
So my question to staff and to the rest of the commissioners was related to the 55 and older and the demography related to that the applicant has generated in terms of his studies. So would it be appropriate to ask him to come back with that information since he doesn't have it available to us now? Is that something that we'd be interested in?
That's appropriate, you may ask.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Would you like to continue the hearing till next month and come back with that data?
Yeah, I think that would work. Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to make sure everybody has that information and it's something we can provide.
Okay.
quickly.
I move to continue the hearing till next month's planning and zoning meeting.
Since,
Vice Chairman, can we have a discussion before you make a motion?
Certainly.
now, this is a public hearing, right? Do we have to finish up the public hearing portion?
No, it's open. We can continue it.
Okay.
If it's been open, you can continue it without us having to renotice it. But if there are people here that want to speak about it, I would encourage you to hear their concerns as well, and
That was the
in
part I was
case they
asking
cannot
about.
come back next time.
Yeah, we have people on the list to speak.
Mr. Chairman, if you would, let's allow them to speak, and then after everyone has had a chance to speak, and then we'll entertain a motion to continue to April 18th.
Okay. Hermit Goyd, you're signed up on the list to speak, so come on up and give your name and address.
So I'm Hemant Goyal. I'm a resident of 525 Abbey Court, which is directly behind the North Coppell Road at the intersection of North Coppell Road and the Canyon Drive. So I have 3 or 4 major points to note. I come from a community in India where parents love to live with their children, so I like the fact that it's a 55 plus community. No oppositions to it, but there are a few things that I would like to bring to attention. One is the density that is being mentioned. It's being mentioned as 23.2 or something, but it seems if we leave out the easement area, because that's anyways not fit for development, the density increases to 29. And the other fact is it's a 248 unit, not a 232 as noted on the letter that has been sent out. So between the two, there's a significant increase in the density of the proposed used land, which I would like to put forward. Secondly, the thing that has been left out is this whole property is subjected by 2 roads, the Canyon Drive and the North Coppell Road, which are both single lane or 2 lane, whatever you call it, roads. So now with the 250 community coming in there, how does that impact the movement of traffic? Because till now, all the other offices in that area are day use offices. Now you have 248 unit community with possible emergency calls throughout the night coming in, and with neighborhood being a quiet neighborhood, how does it impact the residents and everyone around it? So what thought has been given to that development to address the concerns? Because now you have children who need to get up and you have ambulances or fire trucks going out in the night. So that is something that probably needs to be addressed. And then I think the other piece is this is a 4-story building as proposed, whereas all the other buildings in that neighborhood are around the 3-story height, which is the apartment building, the new multiplex office that came across on the highway, as well as the other offices on the Canyon Drive. They're all 3 or less. So with this increased height, how does it set well? There are privacy concerns specifically because my entire backyard and my entire home is kind of comes into direct line of sight of this building now. So that is something that I would like to put forward and share here. I think those were the key points. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
But to be clear, sir, do you oppose this project?
I oppose. I am not in opposition to the 55 plus community, but I think these are considerations that need to be addressed to move forward with the project.
So in summary, a traffic study?
A traffic study, why a 4-story versus a 3-story, and the density itself that is being questioned here is it, there are multiple numbers. There's a 23 number, there was a 22 number, which is, I think, what's allowed. Then there's a 23 number, which was floating around, and then there's a 29 number if we leave out the easement area. So what exactly is the number that we are talking about, and what is the exception that we are expecting?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I wish to speak. Good evening, everybody. I'm new to the processes and procedures, but I've been a resident.
Ma'am, you need your name and address.
Manibala, my name is Manibala Jonalgata. I live at 716 Westminster Way. That is few paces away from where this construction is being proposed. First of all, I want to start with the number of notices that were sent. They said 63. Our neighborhood is 66 homes. They nearly did not cover all the people that need to be notified, because there is an elementary school maybe 700 to 800 feet away from where this construction will be. The multifamily homes that they're referring to, there is a lot of children that get on the bus and go to that school. So I first want to start there. The number of notices that were sent should be expanded, because this will impact all the children who will be going to that school. So any construction, say if it's a 2-year period construction, even if I want to take a microscopic view, the 2-year period, there will be significantly more number of people who will be impacted by the disruption of this construction. That's first point. I also request this entire leadership here to give me a little bit of leeway as I collect my thoughts. This is the first time I'm coming to this meeting. I only got to note this. I was away from the country for 6 weeks, so when I saw this in mail, I asked my neighborhood to also come in, so I came in, so I'm not completely prepared. But I did hear a couple of things that are worrying to me, and Commissioner Sue Blankenship rightly pointed out, and maybe as a private citizen, I can say that you're bringing on a project to put in Coppell to and also clearly saying that it may not completely capture the needs of the citizens of Coppell, or most of the Coppellians may not be filling this property. So I want to understand, what kind of tax burdens that we Coppellians have to take on for providing all these services. If they get a complete tax exemption, then I, as a private citizen, do I have to bear some of the services because they will need ambulance services, they will need road services, they will need water, all of that. And if there is no tax being paid, that means I will start from the financial point of view. That means the rest of the Coppell population has to fund whatever that services need to be. And you're talking about 55 plus. So there are 3 or 4 things I want to bring up with the 55 plus. You could be a 55 plus person living there, but you could be married to somebody who or living with somebody who is not 55 plus. And you may have children. And we know Coppell's number one proposition is the schools. And while I want everybody to have a fair shot at education and get access to good schools, you're limiting the income level, and you're limiting what the city could gain from it, but you're going to access the schools. I mean, you can argue there's 232 units or 242 units, and then 1.5 times, so let's say 400 people, maybe, even if it's 50 kids, right, 10% or 40 kids. I already know that schools are running at capacity and there's overflow, and I know Coppell, the school, Cottonwood Creek is the overflow school, and there's always an overflow. So that's my concern. Second concern is that when there were offices built in front of our neighborhood, there was a lot. I mean, we are still learning about how to get involved with the city and we talk to the city manager and all of that. There was a lot of pollution that was that happened, and all of that drainage, all of that goes through our neighborhood. We ended up paying $40,000 just a year and a half ago to make sure that all of that sludge and drainage and all is cleared out, and it was becoming a health hazard. And it was an extreme tax on all of our 64 residents in that property. So I worry about not only the immediate impact of pollution when the construction happens, the overuse of that single lane road, because it's only single lane traffic. It's not even completely divided. So the pollution, the noise that my fellow neighborhood person brought up. So to be clear, I oppose this at this point without additional information. I also would like to see what is the impact to our taxes, what is the impact to the schools, and what is the impact to the traffic pattern. And while they were talking about the highway district and changing that to a multifamily, and there is already multifamily living on Coppell Road, those are luxury apartments. Those multifamily apartments that are there, they have 2-car garages. The average rent there is at least $2,000. And we are looking at what they are proposing for this 55 plus community. So I also want to see how it serves us as citizens of Coppellians having that 55 plus property there.
Thank you, ma'am. Time's running short.
Okay. There's one more topic I wanted to bring up. So what is our discourse? Who should I talk to about going about it methodically and getting a little bit more information so that we can come back educated and have a decent conversation about it on April 18th, if it is going to continue. Because you also brought up that both of these.
You can talk to the applicant and you can talk to the city staff.
Okay, we shall do that. But also, is there a way that these two things about the zoning versus approval of this application separated? Is that something that I need to talk to the city team as well?
Now, what we're talking about, so you understand, the city has to adopt a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan identifies the areas of town where certain kinds of development, where's the housing going to be, where's the commercial areas going to be. That's what's being amended. So this is along the highway, so it has a designation as highway oriented.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily highway oriented, so it requires an amendment to that comp plan.
Okay.
And then the zoning is the actual use of the property. These things go together. That's why they need to amend the comp plan in order to accommodate the zoning. So they're just part of the same planning process. Okay?
All right. Thank you for clarifying that, because that was the other point I wanted to bring up. A lot of the access to this property is either single direction, because it's kind of landlocked and it's between a single lane access road. And so access to that is also going to be tricky. This is another thing that we need to think about if you're thinking about a comprehensive usage and traffic patterns in the city. So I hope I expressed my opposition or my hesitation to this plan clearly, and I will follow up with the city staff.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question of the applicant.
Go ahead.
Sir, how does the 55 and older application process actually work? I mean, let's say, I'm 70, so I lose my work and everything else, and I meet your qualification for, renting one of those units. But I have this young lady who is my significant other, not married to me, but she lives with me, and she's 34. Just as an example, I don't have that. I've been married many years. I just celebrated my 46th. But as an example, how does this actually work? Can one person qualify and then bring in other people who would not necessarily qualify for 55 and older?
So the requirements are that the head of the household has to be 55 or up on its surface. If they named others on the lease, they could live there and they could be under 55. But what we've seen in the communities that we've built similar to this is that that's usually not the case. Like I said, the average age is usually 65 upwards, 67. And when there's issues of noise and if there's people are bringing around guests and whatnot, there's nobody that polices a building better than a senior tenant living in this community. So, that's what we've seen. We haven't seen that there's a lot of kids in these properties. We haven't seen that, there's a lot of these guests. And, it's a requirement of, the name of the law with fair housing is, that's the requirement.
Thank you, sir.
And I guess I do circle up with my colleagues and have some more information about the exact capture rate and market of the area. So with the market study that we performed, within a 6-mile radius of the site, there was 3,000 individuals who would qualify under these income limits. So this would be under a 10% capture rate for those tenants for individuals within that 6-mile radius. And a point on the traffic, with this changing from a more intensive commercial use to multifamily, the TIA wasn't required because it's going to generate less traffic than one of these more intense commercial buildings would, like the office building. So that's why the TIA wasn't required, is because it's already zoned for a use that's more intense from a traffic perspective, as staff mentioned. So I just want to mention that.
Thank you very much.
And I guess just with having that additional information, I would like to move forward kind of with the actions today, and happy to answer any other questions or anything like that.
Does any of the members of the commission have questions they want to ask?
Do you want to finish up the public hearing?
Yeah, let's see if there's any other speakers. We've only had 2 identified. Is there a third? Something out
There's
there?
not on my list, but does anybody in the audience desire to speak further?
Okay.
Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Well, you had a motion and a second to continue the public hearing, which was not withdrawn,
That's true. That's got to be voted on.
or the second, and you could withdraw your motion if you don't want it heard. So.
I didn't realize it was seconded. Who seconded it?
One of the virtual members.
Oh.
I think it was Ed.
I didn't hear that. I see.
Okay.
No. I didn't second it. I asked to have a discussion before. When Vice Chairman made a motion, I interjected before it was seconded, so because we hadn't had a chance to have a discussion.
Okay, I will second it then. So then.
No,
can vote on
I
it.
think what he's asking you to do is withdraw your motion.
So, did the city secretary, madam secretary, board secretary, did anyone second the motion? All right, so we have a motion that doesn't have a second. Do you want to repeat the motion or you want to withdraw it?
I will move to continue this hearing until the next zoning planning commission meeting next month.
Which is April 18th, 2024 at 6:30 PM. I need to put that in there so that we don't have to renotice it. So
I'll second it.
Okay. Now you have a motion.
Can we call the roll?
Commissioner Blankenship,
Nay.
Commissioner Guerra,
Nay.
Vice Chair Portman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer,
Nay.
Commissioner Haveman,
Aye.
and Commissioner Bishop.
Nay.
So
The motion fails, so it's back to it's back to a motion.
Okay. A motion on the case.
I'll make a motion to deny the approval of PD 316 MF2, Roars Coppell Lot 2, Block 1, GTE Shared Services Center Addition. A zoning change request.
Commissioner Guerra, so I thought we were going to have a discussion after the close of the public hearing.
There's a motion on the table, so your point of order is really what you're saying. So there's been a point of order, so now I've got to ask the chairman, do you recognize the point of order, or do you want?
Yes, Ed, you can have your statement. We'll have your discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. First, from a land use standpoint, I support the change in land use, and based on the current freeway special district was designed for higher traffic, and this has turned out to be lower traffic, as noted by the TIA not being required. Number two, from a city tax perspective, that is outside our purview and should not be considered. And three, from a capture rate standpoint, although I think it's interesting to know, I don't think it's relevant to the particular land use consideration because one, in terms of who's going to live there, we really have no idea. And with the industrial park and daytime workers that are there that don't have access to affordable housing, they certainly could be in the pool for for potential space there. but I'm not sure how relevant that is to our role as a body to this particular zoning and land use of determining who is going to live in the property. That's all I had to say.
So you are not making any motion to approve or disapprove this proposal?
I will make a motion if none of the other commissioners have any additional comments.
There is a motion on the floor. The chairman allowed his comments, so it would be appropriate to get a second to Mr. Guerrera's motion.
Second.
Now you can have all the discussion you want.
Any further discussion by the commissioners?
Well, I think that if we are going to invite other people into our community, which this project undoubtedly will, this is probably one of the better sites to be able to do that with, given its location and proximity to the freeway and office building and all the rest of it. So I know we need a 55 and older. I wasn't necessarily inclined to support a low-income project, but there's a need for that as well. So I think in general, I'm okay with it.
Okay, I'm okay with the proposal too, so let's vote on it. Cammie, you have a motion to deny, seconded, call the roll.
Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Commissioner Guerra.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Nay.
Commissioner Mauer.
Can I get a quick clarification before I vote? So since it's a motion to deny, a nay would be a motion to would be essentially a motion to approve, or to and vice versa.
Yes
Could you
means
confirm that?
no. Yes means no. No means yes. That's why I don't
Perfect.
like. So if you vote for this motion and it is denied, then we're done. If this motion to deny fails, then you still need to make another motion to approve, because you have no action taken at that point. So if you vote yes, means you're against the development. If you vote no, means you're in favor of the development. Is that clear?
Great, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
So I will vote nay.
Commissioner Hafman.
Nay.
And Commissioner Bishop.
Yes.
Tie.
Fails, the motion fails because it fails to receive a majority. I would assume a corresponding motion to approve would likewise fail.
I assume that would happen too.
You have to go through and do it, so.
So I move to approve the project?
Second.
You have a motion to approve the application. Take another roll call vote, Ms. Cammie.
Commissioner Blankenship.
Nay.
Commissioner Guerra.
Nay.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop.
Nay.
Motion fails, so the recommendation will go forward as a denial.
The record will reflect denial, and the applicant can appeal or not.
To the city council,
Yes.
where a supermajority will be required.
Thank you for your presentation and time. Citizens, thank you for your statements. We will move on to the final agenda matter, which is a public hearing to consider approval of an amendment to Chapter 12, Article 30, S or SUP Special Use Permits, Charity House or Transitional Housing Code, to consider text change amendments to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Zoning, Article 30, S or SUP, Special Use Permits of the Code of Ordinances by amending Section 12-30-5 SF-ED Single Family Estate District of said chapter and article by amending uses to include a charity house or transitional housing, amending Section 12-30-6 Single Family-18 SF-18 Single Family -12 SF-12 Single Family 9 SF-9 and Single Family 7 SF-7 to include a charity house or transactional housing, amending Section 12-30-13A, quote, H, historic of said chapter and article to add charity house or transitional housing as a use when part of a single-family residential development or mixed-use development, except when a part of live-work units, and to amend Article 42, special definitions, to add a definition of charity house or transitional housing. Staff Rep. Matt Steer.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the lengthy description. That concludes my presentation. So staff received an inquiry as to where charity houses are allowed, and the use isn't currently listed in the ordinance. And in consultation with the city attorney, staff's recommending defining and allowing for this use within single-family structures, provided a special use permit is obtained. And this is similar to the lodging house or short-term rentals that was approved in 2023. The proposed changes provide a clear definition of charity houses and where they would be allowed, provided a special use permit is obtained. The SUP process allows for more public involvement. It requires notification of property owners within 200 feet of the property in question per state law, a courtesy notice for property owners within 800 feet of the property, and that's per council, and a public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission and at the City Council. The proposed definition reads, charity house or transitional housing shall mean short or long-term temporary occupancy of a single-family residential structure, uncompensated or de minimis fee for persons that are sick, very poor, homeless, or have special needs or disabled. This definition does not include assisted living, group homes, halfway house, or other type of temporary house licensed under state law or defined in the Code of Ordinances. Similar to STRs, these residential districts were chosen because they are single-family detached units and not attached. This provides the neighbors some separation from the proposed uses and transient nature of the charity house uses. So the first use within the special use permit, or the first district that it would be allowed with a special use, is this SFED district, or the single-family estate district. The second one that we've included is a compilation of single-family districts, the SF-18, SF-12, SF-9, and SF-7 district. The third one is our historic district. We mimicked what we had done with lodging houses in this, and said charity house or transitional housing when part of a single-family residential development or mixed-use development and shall not include live-work units. The mixed-use developments provide a separation of uses from the ground floor to the upper floors. So that concludes my presentation. Staff is recommending approval of the Charity House or Transitional Housing text amendments. I'll turn it over to Bob to see if Mr. Hager, see if he has anything to add to my presentation.
No, this is a result of an inquiry that was made to us about charity homes, and it's been some of my experience as a municipal lawyer that these types of facilities are available within the Metroplex area, and so my recommendation is to try to get out ahead of this, define it, and then allow both the Planning Commission, staff, and the City Council to make a case-by-case determination of whether such facility is appropriate where it's being requested by an applicant, much like we do other uses. And this seems to be that kind of special use that needs your all's expertise and points of view in the community, and making an appropriate recommendation, and then letting the council make the final determination in accordance with our zoning ordinance. And I would support you adopting these text amendments.
Any discussion by commissioners? Seeing none, I will move that the proposed Charity House or Transitional Housing text amendments be approved as written.
I'll second that.
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship?
Aye.
Commissioner Guerra?
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman? Aye. Commissioner Maurer? Commissioner Haveman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop?
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
For those you didn't know, Mr. Mauer had to drop off the line.
It is now 8:35, and we've had a report on city council action from staff, so I think so. You want to give us a report?
The city council agenda, actually, they dropped the first meeting in March, so the next meeting will be March 26th, and we'll be taking the service center at that time.
Thank you very much.